check, check, check.
Okay, welcome to the May 18th Joint Budget Finance Committee Select Board meeting to go through the second phase of the department head presentations. A couple of points of order for the meeting. Uh, If you're not, you're in a muted mode. If you need to speak, then you can unmute yourself. But when you're done, go back to mute. That way it'll minimize some of the feedback and things like that. This meeting is only to review items not covered in the previous meeting. So we'll not be relooking at anything that we already looked at in the past. This is just the items that we did not cover. Uh, the way we set it up with the department heads is they will give their presentation. When they're done with their presentation, then we will be able to ask questions. Once we're finished with questions with that department head, they can leave the meeting. So make sure you get all your questions asked before we have them leave. But by having them leave, that opens up a little bit more bandwidth and makes it a little bit easier for things to go that way. Final thing is stay on topic when you're questioning. We want the questions should be directed only to that department that we are looking at that point, not going off on other avenues. That way we can get through the thing in a fairly straightforward manner. Bob, the first item of business was going to be the approval of the minutes from the prior meeting. What I'm going to suggest is you hold that over until your Thursday meeting and cover those. So just for the people that came in just at the end there, an easy way to unmute yourself temporarily is hold down the space bar. Well, you hold the space bar down, you're unmuted. As soon as you release the space bar, it puts you back in mute. So by muting it, that kind of cuts out a lot of the feedback and things like that. So if we're ready, we will begin. First item would be the presentation from Public Works.
Ready?
Yep.
We didn't do too much this year. The Public Works budget in a whole is up about $70,649. Most of that's going to be in the salary line item to cover the full-time mechanic. There's also a shared position with the town of Naples in that. We carry the 40 hours on that budget, and then we get paid back from the town of Naples. He's up there for 26 weeks. We also had software, which is for the mechanic. It's a $5,000 line item we added this year. That's to cover his laptop and programming that we have to buy every year so we can diagnose and work on the equipment that we have between the Public Works and the fire department. Going down through there, the other items was cemeteries went up $8,400. That's to cover Mountain Road. The person that was mowing that no longer does it anymore. They used to do, so we added that to our mowing contract, and the Raymond Hill extension. Everything else kind of stayed the same. We haven't done too much other than that.
Okay, questions?
I have a question. How's the salt sand supply, and how much do we have in surplus?
I just had 90 ton come in today of salt. That should put us to about 150 ton in the building right now. I've got, and this is just a guess because I haven't done my total sand usage for the winter. I've got about 2,000 yards in the building right now. We used considerably less sand and salt this year. Some of it was due to weather. Some of it had, most of it had to do with having control of what was being put out.
Other questions for Nathan on Public Works?
Nathan,
Yes.
how's it working with the expanded plowing that we're doing and having the personnel to be able to do that?
I think it worked great. I'm sure there's people out there that were uncomfortable or unhappy with the plowing. Fortunately, we didn't hear from them at all. My complaints at that level went to zero. We had minimal breakdowns. Staff worked great. I think the end product was fantastic. We saved a lot of money in material. It was a light winter too, though, but I think it worked very well.
I would like to echo that. I was getting a lot of complaints in the last of the P&K, and I would tell you that this year, I thought they did a great job. I didn't hear from, I can't even recall a complaint. There's some concerns here and there, but not an outright, you've had a failure. So, and we were getting that kind of complaint under the last years of P&K. So I would say it was a great success, and Nathan and the crew did a very good job.
Thank you.
Just a comment, if I can make one. I understand that Gray is plowing North Raymond Road to Pond Road.
That starts, we've got one more winter program we're doing right now. That doesn't start until 2021.
Okay, because they did not do that this year. I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, that does, there was 2 years left on the contract with the gentleman that plows on that end.
That's fine. Thank you.
Other questions on Public Works?
You want to cover CIP too while we're right here, or is that?
Yep.
There was no changes in CIP. The only thing we moved, or Kathy moved, 60,000 out of my paving into the TIF. So we still have 320,000 for paving. 215,000 for equipment. We have not compiled a list of what we're gonna do yet. We're waiting on the truck from the town of Gray. We're gonna make an assessment of what we have at that point. And then we'll whittle the fleet down a little bit, and we will get a better plan of what we're gonna do with them. Other than that, that's all I got.
May I ask a question of Nathan, please?
Yes.
Nathan, with everything going on, are you at full staff right now, and is everything working properly as far as being able to social distance and follow all these executive orders that are out there?
Right now, we're down one guy. We got a gentleman out on a workers' comp, so we're short that one person. The other, my part-time guy that we share with Naples has gone to Naples already, and the rest of the crew, yes, they're all in separate equipment right now. They're sweeping. When we get done with sweeping, we've got a plan going forward for the summer construction. Typically, they don't. They're separated anyway under normal circumstances, so it's been pretty easy to keep them separated.
I will say that, yeah, I mean, between Nathan and Don and the staff at the town, there's been an awful lot of work put into how to keep people separated and keep people safe during this whole thing, as far as sanitation, as far as sanitizing things, as far as personal separation and things like that. So it's been obviously it's been a big topic. It's been something that's been looked at by all of them, and there's a lot of inputs from a lot of people, and the plan, for obvious reasons, changes day to day, week to week, based on what's coming down from Augusta. But they're on top of everything that's coming there to try and keep people safe as well as getting the town's work done.
If I may follow up, and I'm not sure this is the appropriate time to ask the question, but where are we on revenue collection for the town? Property taxes, revenue sharing is probably going to get cut at some point. Don, I guess I'll address the question to you.
Yes, that's a great question. And with respect to property taxes, we actually were above last year's collections. Last time I took a look at that, we were significantly above, but of course, your overall collections are going to be higher one year to the next. But surprisingly, we had no serious issues, have had no serious issues in that area. We were 250, now maybe 300,000 above last year at the same time that I asked the question. And so I don't anticipate that we're going to have any kind of problem with property tax. Now, excise tax, that's another issue. But I believe that we're going to inevitably catch up. I mean, legally, we're not going to see people be able to evade that. What's going to happen, though, I think, is it's going to fall in the wrong fiscal year. We're going to make the collections ultimately, but they're going to be not booked in this fiscal year, but perhaps in the next fiscal year. Now, with respect to other collections, state, I mean, that one, Kathy Ricker has joined me because of the bandwidth issue and the reverberation issue out front. But I would have her answer that particular question. But before we get to that, I'm saying general things like boats and licenses and so forth. I think we're going to, although the de minimis sort of collections, we're going to lose a percentage of those. No,
we're not losing when it comes to CEO office, and we're not behind.
I haven't got to that one yet.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we have not lost in CEO, she said, and that's because people are taking this as an opportunity to do projects, building projects, renovation projects. Scott tells me, and I'm not sure if he's on here, but Scott says that we're actually seeing an uptick in the small renovation type projects. So we're going to get those revenues. But I think some license fees will go by the boards. And as far as the state revenues, what would you say about that?
I redid the estimate for the this budget period, and I knocked it down about 30%. That's generally what the rest of the municipalities in Maine are doing. So I knocked it down for this year. It's, you know, it's gonna be down for, we get the revenue sharing the month following the month. So our last one, which we got in March, was February, so that one was okay. What we get in May will be April, and that will be lower.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be significantly lower, and I think we're gonna be off for some period of time, but how much? I mean, you tell me. You know, how much economic damage has been done? You know, how long is it going to take to come back up to speed? Are we gonna come back up to speed? You know, I don't know. In the short term, I'm gonna say no.
Sue, I'll ask you this. Can car registrations be done online to
Yes.
collect?
Re-registrations, yes. Sue, do you want to speak to that one?
Yeah, so you're still muted.
Yeah, I tried the space bar, that didn't work. We can do re-registration, or they can do re-registrations online. New registrations, they have to see us, especially the private sale, because we have to process titles and process sales tax. We've done a very limited number of those because license plates, frankly, don't mail well. And it's a lot of back and forth to do them. So once we open, I think we're going to see a uptick in those for a bit.
I would like to say on the revenue issue that we, of course, since the declaration, since the onset of this pandemic, we have kept, you know, not regular hours in the respect of how we were before, but we've kept regular access and been directing people remotely to the state website. We've done remote transactions throughout. We've made ourselves available. Some towns, I believe, and I can't name the towns specifically, but I believe a number of them went to ground for a period of time. We did not do that. We started out with what we called car service, where we went out in PPE and serviced people in the parking lot. And, you know, then we went to a complete remote service. But we never have been in a position where we weren't attempting to and providing service. How I know this is that we've gotten inquiries from other towns that have. So we didn't do that. So I think that helped to mitigate, you know, any kind of a, you know, substantial decrease in any particular category of revenue.
I have a question for Nathan.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just was curious, out of that 320,000 for paving, is there any big projects as part of that, or is it mostly just routine, you know, planned paving?
We had, yeah, the one big project we're gonna do this year is Mountain Road. We're gonna do Mountain Road and Shaw Road down off Raymond Cape. And the following, after we're done with next year, we're gonna do the other half of Mountain Road. So we're gonna hang on to some of the money. We don't have enough to do the whole job this year. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you, Nathan.
You're welcome.
Other questions on Public Works? Bob, did you raise your hand or was it?
I was just indicating that I was good.
Oh, okay. Okay, in that case, we'll move on to cemeteries. Sue, I think you've got cemeteries, right?
Well, Nathan and I kind of tag team it. He's already spoken to his mowing budget, but I do have a request in to continue the $3,500 a year to correct the seating of some of the stones, to straighten them up, to repair stones that are broken, and clean stones. So far, we've completed Raymond Hill and for the old stones. I believe they started on Mountain Road last fall, and this spring they're supposed to, when they can get out. I haven't talked with them to find out where they are with the COVID, but When they can get out, they're going to finish cleaning and straightening Mountain Road and then move to the village. And once the village is done, we're going to move to North Raymond.
Questions on cemeteries?
Ralph, I'd like to back up here for a second, because I had solid waste on my agenda.
Solid waste comes on later on.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Other questions on cemeteries? Seeing none, we'll move on to town buildings. Who's gonna run?
Talk about that, Nathan, you want me to talk about it?
No, I can go ahead with it.
Okay,
At this point, we've done quite a bit to the town office. My plan this year was take another run at doing some new fuel pumps at Public Works for the fire department, Public Works, and school department. We're talking about the money from the CIP account, correct?
Well, this is just the town buildings, the
just the operating account, Nathan.
Oh, okay, then I'm sorry, I jumped on that one. I don't control the operating side. Kathy does most of that.
Okay, well,
Really? I thought it was you, Nathan.
she said she thought it was you, Nathan.
I can do it. I don't really think there's any, I don't really think that there was anything different.
She's looking right now.
Town buildings. Yeah, there isn't really any, I put more money in contract fees, doing some.
Can you hear her?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there really isn't. Utilities. We combined the portable with this, so everything this year looks a little bit bigger because this was the first year that we combined like the utilities and the security and the supplies and the heating oil and just general building maintenance. So it looks bigger than last year because the budget, we combined the two last year. And conversely, we decreased the technology budget because that's where all those expenditures were going through. But there's really nothing significantly different in town buildings this year.
The significance in town buildings is in the current fiscal year. And of course, we're keeping detailed records and track of our expenditures in hopes, of a federal reimbursement. And so that's where the big difference is going to show up in terms of some renovations, temporary renovations that we will be submitting, hopefully for stimulus funds, grant funds, FEMA funds, any and all funds that are available. And so from the get-go, we've been keeping very detailed records of that. You're going to see plexiglass barriers installed. You're going to see the closet, which you may not know exists, be turned into a workstation as you enter the vestibule area between the two glass doors. As you look to the immediate left, there'd be a bulletin board that'll be converted to a workstation. There'll be various safety measures taken within the town office for both customer and employee safety, and they'll have a cost, but that'll be in the current fiscal year.
Can I ask a question of Don? On that recoupment money that you're trying to account for, doesn't the state already have 1.2 billion they're sitting on, and aren't all the towns just waiting to get reimbursed on it?
Not that we're aware of, no. We haven't gotten that word.
Well, you may want to check into it. The state already received 1.2 billion.
Will do. Okay.
Right, and I know that
we're ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, if you talk to some of the big cities, all the mayors have written a letter to the governor wanting to know where that money is and why it hasn't been distributed yet. It's supposed to go to public works and public safety, and they have it, and they're just kind of sitting on it.
Okay, well, I've been following the discussions through GP cog, and we haven't seen that at our level yet, so I will look into that for sure.
But even if that's coming, that would help offset expenses that that essentially right now, our avenue is to exercise the ability we have to expend up to the 70,000 on emergency funds to do that while we're waiting for that to come through, because otherwise it, obviously it's unbudgeted.
I have a question for Kathy, if I could ask her.
Sure.
Are we in contract now for fuel supply? And if not, will we be going into contract for fuel?
We do. We already have our fuel contract. We did it as soon as the bottom fell out of the oil market.
What's that look like this year?
It's going to be about 20 cents less a gallon for us.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions on town buildings? Okay, seeing none, we'll go into solid waste.
We're in the last year of a 3-year CPI governed contract with Pine Tree Waste. And so that's at 2%. The tip fee with the former MWAC, now Maine Waste to Energy, is unchanged at $41 a ton. And so I think the big news there will be the next contract in the negotiation. Recycling is a cost center now, not a revenue center, and has been for some time. The decision that we made a number of years ago to pass the recycling on to Pine Tree, they were anxious to get it. I was anxious for them to have it at the time. That turned out to be a good bet on our part. So the question becomes, what do we do about recycling? Are we going to want to pay to recycle, possibly?
The comment that I was going to make on this, Rolf, is it time to separate solid waste and recycling in the warrant articles?
Not for 21, but possibly for 22.
Okay, because I think recycling is going to go in a different direction than it is now over time. And
Right, but for 21, we still are under contract.
okay,
For 22,
I'm gonna do my best to negotiate a great contract, but we're facing an uphill battle. And I know Nathan can probably speak to, he has some contact with the actual field people, but they've been anxious to renegotiate for some time, and this has been a money loser for them.
Yeah, they've not been really happy about the recycling part of this thing for a while. They're losing quite a bit of money on it, apparently. They were anticipating a new contract this year, but Dawn pointed out that they had one more year, and here we are.
other questions on solid waste?
What is the anticipation on the recycling? How big of an increase are they going to want on it, Don?
At this time, I don't have any sense of that. We haven't begun negotiations. We're still, a year out. And so I anticipate we'll begin sometime in probably the late summer, early fall, but I have no idea. And I don't know if Nathan has any idea of the magnitude of the cost. They've been complaining about it for the past several years. And I'm not sure we know, but I think it's fairly well certain when you look at what's happening across the rest of Maine, the rest of the country, the rest of the world, that there's a worldwide glut of these materials, and they're just, having to pay to get rid of some of them, which is, not a good situation. And it's going to be, if we want to do it, we're going to be doing it. I think I don't want to use the term to feel good, but to do the right thing, perhaps environmentally, if you want to look at it that way, as opposed to using new materials. But it won't be something that you'll do and receive a revenue.
What's happening statewide as far as
Some towns are dropping recycling programs altogether or reducing them. And it may not be every single commodity. Some commodities are doing better than others. I think there's always going to be a market for metals, for instance. That's a commodity that has a revenue. I think when you look at glass and certain plastics, worldwide glut, no hope of any kind of change in the near term on that. Cardboard also. Cardboard at one time was a pretty good bet. I remember. You think it still is? I'm not sure it is. I mean, that kind of ebbs and flows up and down, but maybe the high grade cardboard's still okay. But a lot of the cardboard you see is what they call Asian cardboard. It's already been recycled, and so it's not high grade cardboard.
Excuse me. Other questions on solid waste? Okay, moving on to public safety. Bruce, you're on.
There, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Excellent. Public safety, we had a couple changes that we've put into this year's budget back before the pandemic hit, et cetera, but we realized the need to add staffing to provide 24/7 coverage with a minimum of 2 people to achieve a couple goals. One was crew continuity, 2 crews that are always working together and efficient and proficient, and to provide safety and expedited response times. Oftentimes at nighttime when there's no one else here, there is times or are times when our medic has to wait for the rest of the crew to show up at the station before they leave to go to the call. That takes and consumes a lot of extra minutes and increases our turnout time. The other issue is that there are times when the medic will arrive quicker than the rest of the crew who might be on as a call department crew and be there alone, which isn't safe at night either. And we've had a couple of incidents involving weapons and obviously a lot involving drugs as of late. So we're really concerned about that and decided that we'd add some staffing. So we added in $115,000 pay for 3 additional personnel. And we made the appropriate adjustments to our line items to remove some per diems and some on-call people, if you will. And that's reflected in shown in the cover letter that went out with the budget. We've included the cost of providing a medical control doctor through Maine EMS is requiring it. So we included $2,000. That's roughly the guesstimate that we have now. That's someone who will oversee medication usage, critique or QI, all of our meds, run sheets, things like that, and training needs. So that's a necessity that we had to add in this year. We didn't adjust a whole lot because obviously the pandemic happened after we put the budget together, but we didn't adjust a whole lot on our materials. What we're seeing is a lot of increases in 95 masks, PPE, things like that we aren't getting for free necessarily. Other items such as bandages and things like that have gone up some too. So we're going to see that in the future. Obviously, this year we're going to have to be creative and try to make do with what we've got and how we got it. Hope everything stabilizes and turns back to normal in the upcoming years. We added the cost of anything that was added prior, like wage adjustments. Last year we added those into the budget this year because we have to cover that. And we did make an adjustment. We have a medic that we think is going to retire finally. He's made commitment that he would retire this summer, and we'll end up having to pay all his vacations, sick leave payout, things like that out of our line items. So that would be something we have to consider there. So we had that addition to our budget. And other than that, the capital budget shows a wrong figure there, and I just will clarify it just for the record, but it actually shows a $93,000 figure, and that was before we had to come in and ask for the emergency appropriation for our heating systems to be replaced. So it's back down to the $75,000 annual, which is the apparatus replacement for the ambulances. That's the ongoing there. Other than that, that's about it. Short and sweet. And questions? I got to cover this, I guess, too. Sorry. Training line item was adjusted, and I think everybody needs to understand that the state has gone to a 2-year training recertification for all our EMS providers. So basically, you're adding a substantial amount of credit hours to every provider each year because we're taking a whole year of recertification time away from them. So it's fairly substantial, and we made an adjustment to that. I think it worked out to be close to $6,000 over each year. And so that would be, maybe it's 4,000, but it's right in that area. No, it is 6,000. Anyway, 6,000 is what I listed. So $6,000 a year, and it will roll over every year. And it's just going to be something that happens to us, unfortunately, because they shortened that licensure period. And we have to provide more training in a shorter period of time for our folks and pay them for it. Other than that, I think that's the very short and sweet version for you. Anything, Cassie, you want to add? No? Okay.
Guess I have a question for Kathy Ricker on this. Why are we not accruing vacation and sick time and whatnot? Why are we taking the hit all in 1 year when it should be an accrued expense?
It's not traditionally done in governmental accounting standards. It's not something that we do. You only budget for what you expect to pay within 30 days. I mean, he'll be in the calculation at year end, but that's basically all we do is make a calculation at year end. We don't try to budget for, we do not put it aside. Short answer. That's something that you want to make a fund for. We could certainly do that.
I mean, it just seems strange that the auditors aren't picking, because typically, I mean, it's reminiscent of what we went through with the schools back a number of years ago, in that they had not properly accrued for vacations, summer salaries and things like that, and they took a big hit up. There was a big hit that was taken there. And if it's an unfunded liability, I mean, that's what I would look at as an unfunded liability.
And it is an unfunded liability, and we do it every year in the financial statements. But if it's something that you want to set aside for and only pay separation out of, it's something we can certainly do.
Well, maybe it's something we need to look at and see what the order of magnitude is, especially if we start to look at potential retirement schedules and things like that. Rather than take hits all in 1 year, if we're doing some accruing for it, we've got less of an impact in any given budget year.
Okay. I can get you the schedule for last year, and you can take a look at it. And we can talk about how much you would want to put away each year, because it's kind of a stab in the dark.
Yeah. Other questions on public safety?
I do.
Teresa?
On the 115,000, Bruce, you have it
Yeah.
for 3 people. Where are we at with that right now?
Okay, I'm not understanding the question. I'm sorry. Where we're at with the
Hiring in 3 new
Hiring?
people?
Yeah,
Yep.
okay. We haven't hired him because it's in this year's budgets. We haven't done that. We had the one that we added a year ago. That position just got vacated, but he went on to Brunswick. Again, better benefits, more money type of a deal. But so we're working on filling that right now, and won't fill these until this money's approved this year. We've got our eyes on a couple people that may fit the bill, and when we get the money or approval, we'll move forward with them.
Okay, so, and I guess where we at too, I know that we had a meeting as far as offering up, hiring wages, hiring bonus and stuff like that. Have we hired in any new people since that meeting?
We have not had any new people come in, no. Short answer. No.
And where are you at with like mutual aid? I know that you guys all depend on mutual aid a lot together. And I know other towns are running into the same issue we are. Yeah. So to me, it's making that mutual aid work. We have to make it work for you.
Wyndham's hiring right now 4, I believe, of it. And Standish is hiring 4 more right now. Gray is put in for, I believe, 4 more. And Casco had in for a full-time position, and I don't know if they had any other part-time, but I don't believe they got their full-time position in Casco. You're right. We rely on each other for mutual aid so much. And what we're finding though is that we're all busy. So when you need that mutual aid, oftentimes, like the other day in New Gloucester for a woods fire, 10 acres burned, and there was, oh God, had there been 10, 11 departments there helping. Every department came with 2 people or 3 people. That's all they had. So they reached as far as Falmouth, Brunswick, Freeport, and us, and that big circle there. So just to go to New Gloucester. Mutual aid does work, but it's a stretch, and oftentimes we're real late in the game before you can get it.
So that 3 positions, I guess I'm just concerned just because if we can't hire what we don't have now, but we're going to put that money aside for the.
You muted yourself.
Sorry,
Yep,
I did.
there we go.
Other people would like
I
to do
lost
that
you
for
right
me.
after you said I'm concerned with, and then it went mute.
My finger came out. Joe's laughing at that one. He wishes he could mute me too. I guess I'm concerned where do you think we're going to get people in full time instead of like the per diem people?
That's the hope. One thing you get with full time is you get a commitment from them. They have full time, they're earning benefits, etc., and they get buy-in. They will work your holidays. They will be here on weekends. Right now, with all our vacant shifts that we're seeing a lot of them on weekends. We see a lot of them on summertime nice days during the week. I wonder why. Stands to reason. And then Christmas Day, find someone to work Christmas Day. If they're per diems, that makes it pretty tough. And we're always light on those big holidays, Thanksgiving week, Christmas week, New Year's, stuff like that. That's what you get though when you get full-time staff in, is you get that buy-in, you get some pride and honor and integrity in the position, and they want to work, and they're here. They will work those holidays. They have to work the weekends, and they have to work the nice days. So somebody will be here. So that's one of the bonuses you get with full-time staff versus the per diem staff. You get that reliability, if you will. We found that when we did the paramedics way back when I started working here 17 years now, the full-time staff was always more reliable. And I don't mean a disrespect with it, but more reliable to fill the shift than because they were.
So why are we not then going with a full-time fire department?
So this
I might
is
be
headed
opening
there.
the can of worms,
Yep.
but
This is headed there. There's no doubt that little by little. So you could do it, but 168 times last year we had 2 rescue calls at the same time, or 2 fire calls, what have you. 60 to 70 times we had the 3rd call at the same time. So having that blended department still works pretty well. That call crew comes out on that 2nd or that 3rd call and often bails us out, if you will. Just the other day, Saturday, as a matter of fact, our rescue with 3 people was at Maine Medical, transporting a fairly critical patient, and we got a motorcycle crash on Webb's Mills. So the remaining crew, the 2 of us, and then Kathy came out from home to respond to that. So having Kathy available from home in that call company position, if you will, at that point, was what bailed us out. We were able to provide a rescue crew and a minimal fire crew. Given the incident we had he been really injured and we had to extricate, we would have been in the mutual aid territory at that point. So we're handling and deal with it on our own.
okay,
I
thanks.
guess that's where we're at with it, Teresa. I mean, there's no definitive with any of this. There's no absolute answer that says this is our fix. I wish I could give that to you. I'd love to invent it. I'd be a wealthy man if I could. But that's kind of the way it is.
Well, and I think it's all the departments, all the towns, we're all running in the same thing. So that's why you've got to rely on that mutual aid even more. So,
And in terms of full-time staffing, I would say there's a lot of churn out there. It's a seller's market.
It is.
Towns that are, well, Brunswick is, I'll just tell you, Brunswick's a town that is known for paying, exceedingly high wages and benefits comparatively. And for some reason, it's a very attractive town. I mean, when I was on the coast, we lost police officers to Brunswick. They would stay in Brunswick for a time, and then they would go on to places like Portland or South Portland. Young people like action, and they like to have the benefits and the pay and the main PERS, obviously. And so they're going to go there. And so I think you got to accept the fact that you're going to have younger people, or possibly in some cases you may see some retirees, but you're going to have younger people, and that's not all bad. I mean, you may have them for a short period of time, but you're going to have people with youth and energy, and and people who hopefully they do aspire to do something more and greater. And that's what we see. See people who, we train, we have them here, they work for us for a time, and then they move on to greener pastures. That's probably what's going to happen, even with filling these positions. But I don't think that's all bad. Hopefully the field will expand and people will go into it, and we'll have, along with these other towns, I mean, we're competing with these other towns that are also adding positions. We're going to try to make ourselves as attractive as we can and hopefully compete well and keep them as long as we can.
If I can add to this too as well, just so absolute clarity, we're just providing with this 2 people around the clock 24/7. That's the idea, is just there'll be 2 people on, the paramedic, firefighter, and a firefighter EMT. And then you'll have your other day staff, your admin or on-call folks. And the students are the added benefit to that package. As we continue with the student program, they do add value to it. They provide us some vets in our service. But right now, there's not a student to be had. One's at home in Connecticut and can't travel back without quarantining. One of them took a job doing brickwork this summer because they pay him a lot more money than we pay him. So he's gone. And Connor just left today to go home and spend a week at home with his family. So they're not here in the summer. They're not here during holidays as far as the students go. So added value, yeah, you can't count on it. That's correct. Cannot count on it.
And the other thing I would say too, recently we had somebody we had our eyes on, and we made an offer. We thought we had an acceptance, and they worked for a local company that's known, I think, pretty widely as being one of the best places to work in Maine. You figure it out. And they stepped up and said, what's it going to take to keep you? And they gave this guy what it took to keep him. And so he's in that trade. And although he dreams and wants to be in this field, he didn't have the credentials. We were going to work with him, but he had to have the top-notch benefits and pay. So he stayed in the private sector doing something that is not public safety.
Are we,
I have 2 questions for Bruce, please.
yep, go ahead.
Number 1, Bruce, you say that you have 2 people on every call?
In the rescue, there's 2 to 3, sometimes even 4, depending on the incident.
All right, is that 2, 3, 4 vehicles also?
At sometimes there's 2 vehicles, yes. So if you have an ambulance go out, there could be a pickup truck following with the 3rd person. And then if they're not needed, they'll come back to the station.
So you have 2 people in one vehicle at one time?
There are several times during that, because of our response plans, though, Marshall, that you'll actually get 2 ambulances and a pickup truck to respond. So you'll end up with a crew of 5 or 6 going to it. And it all depends on what the call is prioritized as. So a serious cardiac, stroke, things like that would prioritize higher and become what they call a Delta or an Echo call. And those bring more apparatus and more capabilities.
Doesn't it appear to be a little bit of overkill?
So, sorry, you think over?
Doesn't it appear to be a little bit of overkill?
It may appear that on the outside, but when you get a cardiac arrest patient and you go through on scene X amount of rounds of drugs, you run out of those drugs quick, and then you end up calling for that other ambulance quickly. We also have found times when you get there and a piece of equipment might not work and you need it. Even though you check them routinely, there are those times that happens. So having that equipment there works very well. And it's all done by that national standard, which is the EMD, Emergency Medical Dispatch Standard. So basically, we've aligned everything across the country. Those priority calls get more apparatus and capability. The alpha call, if you will, or an omega call, which is a cut finger or minor, an ambulance with 2 people. Yeah, that covers it.
A second question, when you say you have 2 or 3 calls at a time, are they all in Raymond or are you using mutual aid?
Quite often they're in Raymond. Yeah. Sometimes we're called out of town, and then there'll be another call here in town. So we'll already be committed to another community. That happens. I guess we did 80 mutual aid calls last year. And I don't think of off the top of my head more than, 10 calls where we were also called back here at town and out of town at the same time. Most of the times this happens to us, it seems like the mad rush, if you will. We're at a medical, we go to another medical, someone has a crash or illegal burn or a woods fire or what have you. Kind of how it works out. You might sit all morning and do nothing. And then all of a sudden you run 5 times, which kind of happened to me on Saturday's shift. We were pretty busy.
Thank you.
Are we seeing right now, are we seeing more or less calls? I know at one point there was a decrease because people were afraid of going to the hospital. Is that normalizing?
Yeah, it was just the March call volume, and since then, it's not hugely above last year, but it is above last year, and it's pretty much the trend. We're seeing more serious calls. We're not going out for that cut finger as much. And I know still because people don't want to go into that hospital and get exposed to COVID or whatever else is out there. But we are seeing the more serious calls, you know, the traumas, the severe medical issues, or the woods, grass, and brush fires, crashes, things like that, and with an increase.
Okay, so I guess the corollary to that is that we should still, we shouldn't see a decrease in the revenue side as far as because if the call volume is still staying somewhat stable, then or increasing, then the revenue side on the collection should be, we shouldn't be seeing much of a decrease there, right?
Right, that's correct. And we've got a $3,700 grant through FEMA from the CARES Act rather, and towards EMS that went into that account, and there's another 5,000 coming as well on that. That's just from that side of the house. And then the billing changes in billing, we're allowed to bill lift assist, no transport stuff now, and that's coming online. So we should be seeing that revenue, if you will, I guess. It's only like $100, but still.
Yeah. I guess one other question is, the call time, your turnarounds, are you being impacted by that because of the amount of time you've got to spend additional at the hospital on the sanitizing side? And is that impacting how many calls you do and where, mutual aid and all that?
Yeah, so the short answer there is yes. We're seeing 25, 30 minutes additional per call for cleanup. If it's a serious call with a definite COVID patient or anything like that, we're looking at an hour plus after the fact, clean, sterilize, and the units and everything else. So we've got that kind of to look at. And with the reports nowadays that we have to write, there's a large amount of time at Maine Medical where most of our patients go, and they demand the full report be left at the hospital immediately. It's got to be printed and left. We go into Bridgeton, you go into Central Maine, you fill out a quick cut sheet by hand, you leave it. They log in later to the state's website and pull that run sheet from the state's website. So those turnarounds are quicker, even though they may be further away to go to Lewiston. Maine Med wants it because of the continuity of care. It's important. They don't want to miss any facts. They don't want us forgetting anything, so they require that run sheet left. That takes a few minutes to write one of these run sheets. I mean, it's a legal document and we can't miss a thing. So often it will take you 40 minutes to write a run sheet. It's pretty extensive.
One more question, Rolf, if I could, to Bruce. Bruce, I kind of lost track. What is your budget up this year over last year? What's the dollar amount?
814 to 921, 100 and that's it.
107, 896.
107.
107, 896. There we go. Perfect.
Thank you.
Bruce, how many full-time people you have right now?
Right now, there are the 4 paramedic positions. One of them is still filled with part-timers, Kathy and myself. And the full-time firefighter EMT position is not filled right now. So there technically is 7, right? 6. Do my math right.
What is your anticipation with all the furloughs that you're going to start seeing at the municipal level? Maybe not in Raymond, but other cities, of availability of paramedic EMTs out there?
Yeah, it's going to hurt our per diem staff and what we have available to us. That's for sure. You can see that. Yeah. In short, that's that.
So you're looking, Bruce, for 10 full-timers altogether then?
That would be 10 if we add the additional 3.
Right, because you have 7
9.
now.
It'd be 9, right? No, it is 7. It's 10. Yeah.
No, it'd be 9.
9.
Because you guys just said that
In
there's
the
7
background, and
now.
I'm just like put on the spot without my calculator. So yeah, 9.
All right, because you just gave us 7 counting, and then the 3 extras that you're looking to hire for next year.
Well, yeah, 3 full-time paramedics, 2 part-timers. myself, Kathy, and the medic, the firefighter EMT. That's 7, so 3 is 10.
I'm glad I got that one right. And what about union? How many of them would be unions?
They're all eligible to go in the union except for Kathy and I. Actually, Kathy by contract is eligible. For all but her and I basically will be in, or could be in. They don't have to.
So 8 of them could be, okay.
8 could be for sure.
Okay, thanks.
I think that begs the question, what would it take to make a full-time fire department? How many more people?
A lot. You'd want 5 per shift minimally, and you'd lose your ability, I think, at that point, probably to maintain a call department. So your depth would be gone. But five per shift, and that allows you to run 2 ambulances. There are 4 shifts in a week at 24 hours per day, per shift, if you will, 42 average work week. So yeah, 20 total, 5 per shift, and then that's your working staff, and then your admin staff on top of that. So when we look at like not an Orono, but Old Town Fire Department runs on that model. They run a 5-person shift, 2 chief officers that run, that's their admin staff. And then they do a lot of callbacks. So when they do get a fire, they're immediately calling back all the staff at overtime costs. That's one model of making it work. Again, when you do something like that, you kind of lose the interest of your call members, if you will. You lose your staffing at that level. It's something that's bound to happen. Look at our call staff. I mean, not picking on them by any means, but we got 2 of them that are in their 70s. I don't know how much longer they're going to continue doing this. We got some in their 60s. Again, how much longer are they going to continue doing this work, getting up at 2 a.m., running out to see blood, guts, and gore and fight a fire and haul hose lines? It's not easy work. Well, I think we got to consider that. And we also have to consider the possibility of trying to pull together something regionally. Obviously, that's always on our agenda. I would like to see it. I don't know as I'll see it in my career anymore. I think what these towns are trying to do is all build out their minimum response. We know we can't necessarily lose the personnel that we have. So you're not combining personnel and getting more for less. You're adding to it to cover the call. Ray is running probably 600 more calls than we do every year. And if you do the math on that, most of them are rescue, and they take over 3 hours per ambulance call. And start figuring that out. Some of them take 4 hours. It's just the nature of the beast. There are fire calls that take 20 minutes, and you're cleaned up and back home here at the station. And there are those that take an hour, and you spend 6 more hours cleaning up. You know, so it's hard to predict the exact needs, but 5 people for call responders gives you 2 ambulances with 2 people, gives you a 3rd person as a float, allows that person to take a fire truck and get there, and then mutual aid to arrive if needed.
So
that's kind of my long answer to that one, Marshall. You know,
but Bruce, for clarification on that,
yeah.
You're going off of Orono, correct, with the 5 per shift?
Just using that as Old Town, but just using that as an example. That's
well,
what
and only because I'm saying, isn't USM up there in Orono? So you've got the college, so you want more kids in. I mean, more kids in. I'm thinking of kids for school, more people on shift. What would a scenario look like for like our town?
That's Old Town, not Orono.
That's Old Town, not Orono.
That's heavier, yeah.
Okay.
I tell you that, you know, Rumford staff's at about the same levels that we're chatting about, and they don't do EMS or ambulance calls. You know, when you arrive at a fire call, you need 2 people in, 2 people out, 1 in command, at least 1 operating a truck, and that doesn't even provide you a water supply. For us, really, we figure 19 people on the initial 5 to 10 minutes of the call for a building fire. And that's without having to do a rescue or any of those operations. The same would really apply to a call similar to what we had up on Raymond Hill Road with the guy hit the tree comes down on the car. Regardless if the tree came down on it, we still utilized well over 19 people at that incident quickly. Extricate, cut him out, treat him, transport him. The crew in the ambulance was 3 in the back because of his injuries. So 3 paramedic staff were in the back of the ambulance. One was the driver. Kind of can see the concerns there. Mutual aid was used on that particular incident For example, Wyndham came with a crew of 3, and Casco eventually showed up with 3. They had 2 in the initial truck, but we still waited over 25 minutes for the Casco truck to get there. We waited about 20 minutes for the Wyndham truck to get there, and those were our closest mutual aid. It's I guess something you have to weigh out and see if we want to be waiting that long to get the staff we need or what have you. But again, the 5 people allows you to run 1 ambulance with 2, a fire engine with 3, which is what you really need minimally, or 2 ambulances with 2, and it keeps you a floater back here at the station. And you'd find me behind the wheel of another truck driving it like I often do now.
Bruce, you said Rumford doesn't do EMT calls. Who does?
Rumford doesn't. I'm trying to remember the ambulance service.
I think it's Capital.
Capital? Kathy thinks it's Capital. It's one of those types of services, though. They're based
First
nearby,
respond.
and Rumford first respond, but they don't transport, so they lose that whole piece of the call, if you will. They go, they're 10 minutes, they're back home. So you can't really count that in your staffing needs, I guess. You do, but you don't, because they don't have the ambulance component. So I guess they would also be running it like a basic EMT level instead of a paramedic level. Let's see, we're 40 minutes away from the hospital, and that changes the dynamic a lot too. If again, it's complex. You look at and you want to say we need X people to do the job, or X people on duty. When you're 40 minutes away from the hospital, a basic transport patient, someone without real serious injuries, can absolutely change on you, and it does. You start entering into having to add pain medicine management, things like that. And 60% of our calls for EMS are ALS, or advanced life support calls, requiring either an intermediate or a paramedic to treat the patient. And probably out of those 60%, I'd say 10 to 15% of those easily change from not needing it to needing it, just due to the time that it takes to get to the hospital. We go to Bridgeton occasionally, but when you go to Bridgeton, their capabilities aren't that great. They are not a trauma hospital. They're not a cardiac hospital. They're a sprained ankle, basic type of call hospital. Sorry to say.
Skiers Hospital.
Yeah. I twisted my ankle, maybe broke a leg, but if you need an ortho, they're going to send you to Med. So.
I'm done. Thank you.
Kevin, you had a.
I was just going to make a comment. Those 2 examples of Old Town and Rumford are also have major paper mills with recovery boilers and things like that. So I don't know if maybe that influences the little bit larger staff, but I do agree that your service is obviously very important. I just wanted to make a comment.
They do, and they also have their own EMS teams on a lot of those mills, fire teams and EMS teams. So they handle most of, I say not all, but most of those little calls, if you will. So,
It's difficult to make, apples to apples comparisons.
It is.
And we have, large summer camps. And so if you're talking about a mass casualty incident, certainly the exposure for massive injury is probably greater in a paper mill situation, obviously. But as he said, I mean, I started my career up there. They have safety units. They have their own people. But that's part of what happens. But here, I mean, we have these large children's camps. We have other, we have a much, much larger influx of seasonality influence. I mean, we triple in size. That doesn't happen in Rumford. So there's differences in every town that influence what your staffing might be.
Right. And we're at Dielectric probably 20 times a year for medical calls. 5 to 20, I'd say. Average year is 50. Yeah.
Other questions on public safety? No? Okay. Administration.
I guess the big news there is 1 full year of the Roadrunner at $800 a month, plus the 10 hours for the employee that does the Roadrunner. And so this is something that Teresa Sadak down in the lower of our Brady Bunch initiated. And I can tell you, it's been very well received. I think the employee that's been responsive, Kayla, has done a real good job. And so I was a little bit skeptical at first at how that would work, but it's worked out really well. And so I'm really glad that we're doing it, and we've continued that in this budget. Aside from that, I mean, it's pretty pretty much routine business, but those are the major changes in administration. Do you want to add anything, Kathy?
No, that's
Pretty much it.
I just want to say, Kayla has been doing great. She's an inside source, which is awesome. And I think that the people are liking it. I may come back to you guys later to see if we want to up it more at some other point, but we'll see.
That is the big issue, is that we have more content on a month basis, much more than we can put in there. And as you may recall, in the glory days of the Roadrunner, it could run, 15, 18, 20 pages even at times, which was probably excessive, I'm told, but we filled that up with the school's help. And we certainly could fill up more than what we have, but then you get maybe a little bit of fatigue too. It might be the right size. I have heard that too, that, it conveys the essential information in a concise format, and people really like it. And it goes to every postal box in Raymond and Wyndham, so you can't escape us. You're going to get it. Whether you want it or not, you're going to get it.
Any questions on administration?
I believe elections are under administration too, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So I talked with Dawn and with Kathy today. I'll be requesting that we carry forward the elections monies from this year, whatever's left, to next year, because the state went and moved an election into another fiscal year for me.
And that would make 2 elections in the next fiscal year. So I think that's prudent.
And the other piece that I requested in the memo that I sent you is $3,000 to continue conserving the old permanent records. I've done the oldest of the Bible records books, the births, deaths, and marriages that go back to the late 1700s. And I think a couple of you came and saw them, but the company that did them did a really good job, and I would like to continue that. I know it's not a big expense, but it's $3,000 that I'm asking.
Other questions on administration? Okay. Not sure what was intended on the RSU withdrawal update, other than the fact that, there's no additional monies requested at this point. Where we are in the process is in the hands of the RSU's lawyer is holding us up at this point. We're on the separation agreement. Our committee has worked with them. It went back to their lawyer and has not come out of there yet. So until it comes out of there, we can't get final approval on that. So we're on hold pending them getting their work done.
Ross, when do you project that will go to the town voters?
The projection is to have that at the presidential election.
Thank you.
Comments from Budget Finance Committee members?
I do have a comment. All right. Did I do that?
No, I think Marshall did.
I want to thank those members of the Budget Finance Committee that was able to join us tonight. I was kind of sweating trying to get in my first Zoom meeting, and I just pulled in under the wire. Upcoming meetings, I have questions. I'd like to be invited to participate in the Zoom meeting of the Select Board. And then when will information on our Thursday meeting come out?
Certainly, you can, I have no objection to you being there, or you can watch it on video, whichever, whatever.
And there's also the phone-in option for that meeting.
What will happen is at our meeting on Wednesday, we will vote the warrant articles, so you will have those available as soon as Sue gets those done up, so that you can have those to have for your meeting on Thursday. Unfortunately, the whole reasoning, I mean, obviously, we're in a very compressed schedule right now because of the notice time that has to be done in order to have the vote done at the primary election. What we didn't want to have to do was go into a whole separate election, which would be, number one, would have been an expense to us, and number two, would probably limit the number of people coming out for it. So we were trying to do that. Obviously, our initial preference was to have a town meeting, but based on where things are right now, that was not going to work. And the other option would have been to continue the budget as it is right now, and then do catch-ups after. You could have a town meeting and whatnot. So the decision was taken to do this as an election inside, at the primary election.
So earlier I thought you answered that it was going to be at the presidential election, but you're talking primary election.
No, the presidential election is when we would have the vote on the RSU 14 withdrawal. The budget will be at the primary election.
And tomorrow, Bob, I plan on getting the agenda for Thursday out to you. And as soon as I can get the warrant done after Wednesday night's meeting, I'll get that to you, but it might be mid-morning or so before I can get that out on Thursday. So it's very short turnaround.
I mean, what you'll be able to see is you can see what the warrant article layout's going to be. What you won't have is what our recommended amounts are that'll be in there. And those, so those will get filled in. The layout of it you'll be able to see immediately, but the actual numbers you won't be able to see until after we vote those that night, on Wednesday night.
I would like to echo Bob and say that it would be nice to have a Zoom invitation to at least listen to the select board discussion on the warrant articles and how you vote. I'm very concerned about Maine's economy right now and how many people in this town are either furloughed or lost their job. And I just want to make sure that we keep that in mind. And I know the select board will, but it's scary what's going on out there. And so I hate to, really think that we're going to be able to do any increase at all in the budget. But I am concerned about lots of people in this town who are not working right now.
I know for one, I'm the only daycare right now open in the town, and there's several. So there is, yeah. And I know it's the same way all over the place right now, and they're looking to open June 1st, but.
I mean, of course, the elephant in the tent is always the fact that the things we don't have control over. Fortunately, on the county tax side this year, because of anomalies in way things happen there, we have a slight decrease, even though their budget increased. But the latest projections on the school budget is we're going to see I don't have the figures right here, but it's a multi-million-dollar increase on their side.
Marshall has those numbers. He said it's like 3.5.
It's a 3% increase and an 83 cents on the millage rate for the school department.
But they haven't really had their final budget negotiation or discussions yet either.
Rest assured, it will be all of that.
Well, let's hope that they're smart enough. Well,
rest assured, it'll be all of that.
They realize what's going on just like everybody else.
I mean, the issue, the biggest problem, one of the problems that you'll have this year is that you're not going to, I'm not sure how they're contemplating doing that public hearing that they're supposed to do, because that has to be done. Then it goes into a referendum question that's at the polls. But the fact is there's been less public input this year than in past years, and in past years there hasn't been a lot of public input either.
The last numbers I saw from the school was from the state, from Chris Howell's document on the allocation, and Raymond's costs were up 300 and some odd $1,000. Going from 10.4 to 10.7 plus.
That would be correct.
That's,
But as far as your initial question of can you get an invite to be able to see the meeting? Absolutely. We can, as far as I know, there can be up to 100 people at the meeting. So,
Well, do you want me to issue an invite to all of the budget committee members? Would that be appropriate? I mean, okay.
Any other comments from budget committee? Bob?
I did have two known absences, although Sheila joined us late after another meeting. Thank you for joining us, Sheila. Dana has issues with connectivity, so I doubt he will be with us on our Thursday night meeting.
I mean, there is the ability to join in on the phone. There's a phone line. You wouldn't have a video link, but he can hear everything there, or it is being live streamed, so he can still see the live streaming.
Can I ask just a general question? If new legislation comes out from Washington that provides additional funds to cities, states, towns, etc., is that something we're tuned into? I'm assuming we are.
We covered that earlier. We are very tuned in.
I apologize.
Expenses
Good.
since day one. We've got those all delineated. Joe mentioned there may be some monies available already that are under by the state.
Yep.
Look into that.
Because I would assume that would help with things like school increases, where we're not, getting new revenue streams at the same time. So
sometimes you have to look at exactly how those how those grants are done and things like that. If they're targeted grants, you can't use them in the specifically in the general fund. You can use those to help offset additional costs you had because of the COVID-19. If it's revenue sharing, that falls into a different thing. But the real concern is, will actually revenue sharing decrease, not increase? So, I mean, but obviously we're in the mode that if there's money and it's available to us, we'll take it.
excellent. I know the Paycheck Protection Act has helped a number of the nonprofits I'm involved with. And there are restrictions on that too, about what you can spend it on, when you have to spend it by, so that it's a forgivable loan.
Right.
Exactly. Thanks, Rob.
I think a big percentage of what's happening
is, I guess the other point would be, if history shows us anything, on some of the FEMA monies and things like that we've applied for in the past, sometimes that takes actually a year to 2 years for it actually, even though it's been approved, for it actually come in to actually hit us. So we have to look at how do we fund that stuff on a going forward basis. And then if we get the money, great, we can recoup ourselves. But the fact is, we still have to be able to support what's out there right now.
on the school point. I think a lot of the increases related to compensation changes, increases for their staff to quote unquote stay competitive. That will not be stimulus eligible.
Any comments from the select board? Okay, seeing none.
Hold on, Ralph. I have one, Ralph. How do we stand on food service for the kids in the summer?
Don has got, Don, you can talk to this, but I mean, Jenny Silverblade is working with.
We've been very concerned about that, and we've been trying to work with the school, which we've opened a dialogue. Teresa's been involved. Jenny Silverblade, our GA administrator, has been involved. They've told us, various things, and I think that they're still trying to figure out exactly what level of service they're going to be able to offer. And so I guess we've committed to the fact that we have our Raymond Community Assistance Fund, we have our General Assistance Fund, which is, of course, is not that significant in terms of size, community assistance more so. I believe that if we put out a call to people in the community, if need be, that we could raise sufficient funds. Rolf stepped in and said that he'd help us through his church. We've tried to determine whether meals can be served off-site, whether there's any school funds. We're kind of not clear exactly on what the school can and will do to help us. You know, they've told us that they can't help with delivery. Certain funds can't be used off premises, possibly. So we're looking, it's still a work in progress, but the bottom line on that one is we're going to make it happen. If there are people in need, people who need meals, particularly school-age children, families with school-age children, we're going to make that happen.
Has the GA account been absorbed already?
No, no,
Okay.
the GA account's fine. Through the pandemic, we've had a few GA requests. You know, one notable one I remember were, you know, some younger guys who were working, you know, in town and were staying in a motel, people from the area. You know, they lost their housing, which was a temporary situation because they lost their jobs. And so they were basically going from working and paying week to week to being on the street, able-bodied people, to Joe's point, you know, who lost their job. That's one I remember. And then you've had some families who have had distress. So we've been able to step up, help them. And, but I wouldn't say at this point that it has been at a level or magnitude that we're aware of that would be significantly outside the norm. But I mean, it's a different reason though. There are different reasons. And I'm not saying there isn't need out there. There is need out there. We're going to reach out, I think, to them through the school program, through the backpack program. We put together a notice to put in the bags about the fact that we have resources, we want to help you. So whether the school continues or not, we're going to be there.
Okay, thank you.
Marshall, here's another thing about that too, is I talked to Beth Peavy, and there's two different things going on right now. There's the backpack program, and then there's also right now they're having meal pickups on 2 different days out of the week.
Yeah, I saw
So,
that.
and there's other people that are coming in. So talking to Beth Peavy, I got more of an idea of what's going on. And I think that backpack program and feeding the kids and families is something that's separate from our GA program. And I think that we've got some ideas that we can work with local people, you know, do some food drives to make sure that we can keep this going to summer. The only thing I am worried about is June 10th or 11th is their last day.
Right.
So I'd like to have some kind of a plan in effect before, you know, too soon.
Yeah, that's the part that's troubling me is they want to go on their summer break, and I'm hoping we can pull something together with them as a part of the equation, at least from some financial resource standpoint. But I'm doing the best I can on that with Jenny.
Well, I'll give you guys a call tomorrow too about some
Yeah.
possible ideas.
Yeah, maybe we can work together and try to get that going, because when they're gone, I think that may be it.
Yes.
You know, I
The
think
comment I want to make is just cash donations sometimes don't work in a situation like this, because if you give them cash, they got to go to the store and get it, or somebody's got to go to the store and get it.
No, we would work with the Good Shepherd Food Bank. We would work, because it's a multiplier effect on your money. You know, we would work that way. We wouldn't be giving them cash cards. We'd be giving them, you know, commodities, and we would source them from something like the Good Shepherd or an entity like that. I mean,
But I also understand the food banks are getting hit hard too right now.
Yes, they
Right.
are.
Although I would say on the food card front, we have had, you know, several cards donated to us, which we have been able to distribute to people in need. These are not town, you know, town purchase cards, but ones that were privately given. And so we have had those, but I would agree with you. That's not the best way to do it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess one thing that, you know, especially for, you know, people that are looking at it from, you know, from the video standpoint and whatnot, is, you know, if people want to help out, they can donate to that Raymond Fund and just send donations to the town and just identify it for that Raymond Help Fund, and it'll go in there because there's, you know, I know that there's people out there that got some of that stimulus money that are looking for good ways to use that, and that is one good way that people can take some of that money and help move that in there to help people along as well. So
Just to let you know, we're going to do that if we need to, but right now we have about $25,000, so we don't need to do that right now. But if we get to the point where we need to, we have the vehicle of the Roadrunner. We have our social media, we have ways to get the word out, and we will. And I expect that you'll be correct, Rolf. When we put that word out before, when we started the fund, we had numerous donations. People have put us on their annual giving program. I think we will be able to raise money.
Other questions and comments?
Just want to remind the budget finance people that we need a quorum for Thursday since it's a regular meeting. So hopefully there's 4 of us here. Hopefully we could find one more and make sure we could hold the meeting.
I'll be contacting those people that I hadn't heard from. So, you know, hopefully we'll be the numbers we need to be.
Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.